Methane is responsible for nearly a third of the warming the world is experiencing today. When we reduce it, the climate benefits show up quickly. And nowhere is this more complex or more misunderstood than in Africa. In absolute and per capita terms, Africa contributes a relatively small share of global methane emissions from oil and gas. But on a per facility and per unit of production basis, emissions can be significant, especially where infrastructure is aging, monitoring is limited, or gas is flared. Africa's methane challenge is not about scale alone. It is about concentration, it is about visibility, and of course, it is about context. Africa's oil and gas sector sits at an intersection of many priorities. Number one, we have energy access, with over 600 million Africans lacking access to electricity. Two, talk about economic development, which is very critical for Africa as a continent. How about environmental protection and climate change, with Africa being one of the most vulnerable to the effects of climate change? Methane has become really central to all of these discussions. But understanding methane emissions in Africa is uniquely challenging. Thankfully, satellite observations are becoming more prevalent, but they are impacted by persistent cloud cover around certain regions on the continent. Ground-based monitoring is limited in many regions. Infrastructure age ranges from very new to very old, decades old. Operational practices vary widely across countries and basins on the continent. So in many cases, data exists, but this data is fragmented, it's inconsistent, or difficult to interpret. So the challenge is not simply measurement. It is translating incomplete and uneven data into insights that decision makers can actually use. But let's be honest, globally, methane narratives are often shaped far from African operating realities. Generic benchmarks and assumptions applied to contexts that they were never designed for. This creates a lot of risk. High impact mitigation opportunities may be missed. Policy decisions may rely on incomplete evidence, and African producers, and in fact countries, may be judged using data that does not fully reflect on-the-ground conditions. So what's missing is not attention, and definitely not data alone. What's missing is credible, decision-ready methane intelligence grounded in African realities. This is why the African Methane Mitigation and Intelligence Network, AMMIN as we call it, was created. AMMIN is an independent, Africa-focused not-for-profit organization dedicated to improving how methane emissions are understood on the continent. Our role is not to advocate for any interest group. It is to improve the quality, transparency, and usability of methane intelligence. We work at the intersection of data, technical analysis, policy understanding, and on-the-ground contextualization that's really key to having a better understanding of methane emissions on the continent. We're not going to create dashboards for their own sake or build narratives driven by assumptions and extrapolations. We are developing a body of data-driven evidence that supports informed decisions. Decisions that can drive policy and regulation, that can inform mitigation priorities or help mobilize financial resources. Our organization is built around a diverse technical community that continues to grow. Our team and advisory board includes experts from academia, from industry, technology providers, and policymaking bodies. Frankly, that diversity is very important because methane challenges are technical, they're institutional, and they are contextual. And no single perspective is sufficient. AMMIN is designed as a living network, not a closed initiative. We plan to engage the global and African methane communities through regular newsletters, webinars, and shared analysis. We will develop case studies that highlight lessons learned as we go. And we will deploy on-the-ground capacity building initiatives to equip Africans with the expertise required to contribute to methane emissions mitigation. We can all agree that when methane is understood clearly, it can be addressed responsibly. And when it is addressed responsibly, the benefits extend to climate, economies, and communities. So, if you are a policymaker, or a researcher, you're a regulator, you're a funding agency or financial institution, or a technology provider, or you're just someone who wants a better understanding of methane emissions in African oil and gas industry, we invite you to engage. Follow AMMIN. Join the conversation and help shape a more informed, evidence-based approach to methane in Africa.